it in a second here. So, all right. So I'm going to start talking about the single sign-on again here. If you just want your students to watch a video, then, and maybe they're on an iPad or something, then they can use that generic account and be completely fine. If you want them to do any work that you want to see or is interactive, they need to be in that SSO account. So if you want to assign something, whether it's a worksheet or an activity or a game, they need to be in that SSO. So if they're not in the SSO, you'll be able to know because the student will tell you, I don't see that as an option. So that will give you that indication that they are not in their SSO account. And another way you can tell is if you were to have them share their screen with you, you would see their username in that upper right-hand corner, their name or their username. And so if you don't see that and it says something like GB Eisenhower, then they're in the school generic account. So that's how you can troubleshoot with them to make sure that they're in the right kind of account. All right. So a couple other things with using the SSO is there's a teacher dashboard. So you'll see that right up here. You'll also see the quiz mixer. So that means you can take a BrainPOP quiz or create your own quiz by mixing it up with other questions. And all of those are when you have to be in your account in order to do those things. You can assign the students' work right here. When you create your class or your dashboard, it syncs with Infinite Campus. So when you go into your classes, you'll have to create a class, but you can have it upload that from Infinite Campus. So pick a roster. So if you are an elementary teacher and you have, your reading class has certain kids and your social studies class maybe has everybody, but your science, you have some spec ed kids maybe that are pulled out. You want to make sure to pick that group where you have the most kids, or maybe you definitely want to pick that group where some of those kids are pulled out because it might be something that you don't want to have them do. So keep that in mind when you create your classes. So then when students submit their assignments, if you've created more than one class, you would just need to tell them, submit this to science, submit this one to social studies, and so forth. So you can create whatever the classes are that are in Infinite Campus. All right, you can use the single sign-on through iPad or Android. Just keep in mind, you have to be signed in. So if they're on the iPad and using the app, they're not going to be signed in. You can't sign in through the app. They would need to go to Chrome or Safari, but Chrome is best because you want to sign into your Google account and then have the students sign into their Google Chrome account, their student account through Chrome, and then they would access BrainPOP that way and do that single sign-on. So, right, are there any questions with when to use the single sign-on and when not to? And remember, if you do have questions as we go, throw them in that chat, and either Amanda or I will be getting back to you on that and be able to help you out there. So, all right. I see no questions. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about the dashboard. So if you haven't signed in yet, make sure you're going to ClassLink Launchpad and signing in through the BrainPOP SSO. I'm going to start by showing you, I'm just going to open up a new tab, and I want to get to ClassLink Launchpad. So I'm just going to click on the house, and I'm not sure if everybody realizes that, but if I click on the house and I'm in my Google account, that's going to take me to ClassLink Launchpad. So it's a nice shortcut to know about. So while that's loading, you're going to see my BrainPOP SSO and my BrainPOP Junior SSO. And the things I'm talking about today through the dashboard, many of the things are available on BrainPOP and Junior, and I usually just call it BrainPOP. So just because if you're K1-2 teacher and you need BrainPOP Junior, these things apply to both in most cases. So let's see, are there any reasons why we wouldn't just have them? Tanya, in my opinion, no. I always have the students just always go to SSO, but I know that there are some, especially pre-K, 4K or kindergarten, where maybe they just want them to watch a video and it gets complicated with having them log in. So, but for the most part, with most of our kids, if they're on ClassLink Launchpad, I'd send them to SSO every time. All right, so here's my BrainPOP, and there's my BrainPOP SSO. So,
hey, Lisa, before you go on, Sierra has a question. She doesn't see SSO on her Launchpad.
oh, okay. Huh. I wonder why that is. Sierra, are you a teacher?
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I'm a teacher at Aldo.
Okay. So when you go to QuestLink Launchpad, they might not be in the same spot. Try to search for BrainPOP and then see if SSO is one of the choices. Or you might get, these are the generic accounts that have the school in parentheses after them.
I did that.
And it's not there.
It's not there.
Okay. Do you know how to fill out a help desk ticket?
I do.
Okay. Fill out a help desk ticket and tell them that you don't have the BrainPOP SSO. And then somebody will get on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right, let's see. I'm going to come back here to just my BrainPOP regular. Here, let me just come to the same page that you all would start on. So anytime that I want to go back to the start of BrainPOP, I can just click on the icon that's up there. If I click on Mobi, this is where I can toggle between BrainPOP, BrainPOP Junior, BrainPOP Educators, or if you're using Espanol or the, I don't know, French. I don't speak French, but you can toggle back and forth between these by clicking on the down arrow next to Mobi. So these are your different headings that you have going across the bottom. So if you know that the topic is listed and it's maybe a social studies topic, I can just click on social studies, and it's going to give me more units. So it's not, I'm going to be drilling down to get to what I want. So maybe I'm doing something with US history. So then when I click on that unit, it's now going to bring it down to all the US history topics. And they really do a nice job of covering a very broad area. So you'll see many of these topics in 3 or 4 different units. So they over cover here. So that's really nice. All right, so that's kind of how you can go about drilling down to find what you're looking for. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and look in the dashboard. I'm going to look at the teacher dashboard that it's going to look similar to what you have. So this is where once Infinite Campus gets loaded, this is where you'll see your IC courses. So it's going to have that course number and what it's called in Infinite Campus. And you'll be able to click on those here and then, or choose whichever one you want to create right there. So you would just add a class. And nothing is showing up because I don't have an IC roster right now. You can then see all the assignments that you have assigned would be right here. Or you could just create an assignment if you have something new. I could create the assignment right here. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Oh, shoot, I don't have a class created right now. That's right. When I choose create an assignment, I can actually maybe choose to watch a movie and do creative coding and maybe a related reading. I can do all of that and choose all the components that I want all at the same time through the dashboard. Right? And then any projects that you're actively working on, I can choose all my projects right here, and it's going to show me everything that I've actively been doing. Or I could drill down and say, I just want to see the creative coding projects that I have going right now. So you can drill that down as much as you want. All right. I also have linked on our agenda the BrainPOP Help Center. So it tells you more about how to use BrainPOP dashboard. All right. So the next thing I want to show you is the BrainPOP educators. So there are quite a few, oops, that's not what I wanted. There are quite a few different, here we go. So I'm in the BrainPOP Educators Help Center right here, which is what I mentioned that will help me with my teacher dashboard. I can find any, all different kinds of things just by doing a search, right? So if I want to, in the next one under BrainPOP Educator, it says pacing guides. I've linked that for you. Or I can just come up here and I can type in pacing guides and search for that. And it's going to give me all different kinds of pacing guides that I might be interested in. You know what? I'm going to go back to the BrainPOP educators because I got into the Help Center by accident. So I'm just going to go on the BrainPOP educators. There we go. Now I'm going to search for pacing guides. So there are our pacing guides. I'm just going to type it in and hit search. And there are some fantastic ideas for all grade levels. So I'm going to go ahead and click on pacing guides and lesson plans. So depending on what grade you teach, you could pick the 3rd grade pacing guide right here. And it's going to give you some ideas of how to pace out these lessons. There are some really great back to school ideas. So talking about setting goals with your students. And remember, I'm in grade 3. So therefore, everything that it's suggesting I use in these pacing guides and lesson plans is appropriate for grade 3. So I've got the back to school things. There's some digital etiquette. Then we've got other topics that are common across the country for 3rd grade. So that's one way that you can look for information to help you get started. So I'm going to start off by looking at the digital etiquette, and I got that from this pacing guide right here. So I am going to go ahead and look into that. Gives me a nice PDF. Let's say I wanted to start off my school year helping my students understand the etiquette involved in being on a computer, getting them to just really treat it like the educational tool that it is, because for a lot of these kids, they think of computer and they think of games, and they think of, let's just play on the computer. So we really want to get them off on the right foot at the beginning of the school year with understanding digital etiquette. And sometimes you'll hear that referred to as netiquette. So you're out on the net, all right? Do we have a question here, Amanda? I see something popped up.
Yeah, the one question I wasn't sure about is, will IC automatically update in BrainPOP?
It does. Yep.
So when their new students are assigned to them for fall, it'll automatically update for them.
Well, it'll automatically give you that, but you have to manually update. I can't remember what the word is that's used. It might be update roster, I think is what it says. And then what it does is it'll add that kid that just enrolled into your roster. But IC will be there, but you have to actually say update now.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So this pacing guide would help you out at the beginning of the school year. It tells you each day what it is you need to do, what video. So here it says watch the online safety movie. Then on day 2, rewatch that. Then it gives you another one and then rewatch the second one again. It also tells you some of the activities that you could use. Now remember, you're going to want to, use this at whatever you think is going to best fit your students' needs. There are definitely some of the resources that I see in here that I really, really like, and some that I'm like, well, I don't know if that fits my need right now, so I maybe would choose to not use it, maybe choose to use something I've created myself. So keep that in mind, that this is just a pacing guide. It's not the end-all be-all of what you should for sure be doing. Okay, so it's got the first part, we're building background. Then as I scroll down, it's some engagement with our students. And then scroll down further, and then there are a couple of assessments. Now I notice on both of these that it says the challenge activity. I will be the first to admit, when I saw that it said challenge activity, I first thought, oh, this would be perfect for my GT kids. And I kind of thought it must be challenging because it's called challenge. It's not at all. It's not. It should be just a part of, just like you would use a worksheet or any of the other activities. It might be challenging, but it's not going to be, it's not above what you're going to be asking them to do for any of the other activities. It's just a different way. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this online safety challenge to kind of give you an idea of what the challenge activities are. So just like our quizzes, a challenge activity can be a review activity or graded. If you choose graded, then they basically answer each question and then move on. If you choose review, they answer the question, then they check their answers, and it'll tell them which ones they got right and which ones they got wrong. And then they have to fix those answers before they can move on to the next question. So I'm going to choose review so that you can see. Oh, actually, I want to go back here because I want to show you that I can see what kind of questions that they are. So there's the fill in the sentence, a multiple choice, a matching, and sequencing. So those are the 4 different types of questions I'm going to be given. So I'm going to do the review now. So it gives me the word bank. So these are just drag and drop. So it's okay to share your last name with your, let's see, oops. It's okay to share your last name with your, friends, real world friends. All right, I'm just going to throw some answers in here. Just throw them in there, and then I'm going to say check. All right, so now it's going to tell me which ones I got right. So I got the first 2 right, and then now I can just, oops, I'm going to hit the X, and those are going to go back over. And now I'm going to try again and see if I get them right. Once I get them, whoops. If I get them right, check my answers, tells me I'm correct, and now it's going to move on to question number 2. Right? So when I see challenge, I don't see that as being something that's so hard that our kids couldn't, our regular kids couldn't do it. It's not like I originally had thought. So, all right. So that's a little bit about how that digital etiquette challenge would go, or online safety. I want to go back to the digital etiquette because I want to show you some parts of this and show you kind of what I mean, where I say I find some that I really like and others that maybe I don't have time to use everything, so I have to kind of pare it down. So in the digital etiquette, a couple that I really like the graphic organizer. So depending on what you're going to do, when I'm face-to-face with my students, I love showing the movie as a whole class, and then my students on their Chromebooks would fill out the graphic organizer. Wow. So I would pause the video and talk about some things and then help the students fill in the graphic organizer. So if you chose to assign this to your students, you would just click here, or they would click there, and then they would just type in their answers. Right? So then after they're done typing in their answers, it would, for the students, say submit to teacher. So here, if this is something that you wanted to assign, this would be an opportunity where I could assign just this assignment to my students. And I could even choose to assign it to some and not all of my students. Okay, so that's that graphic organizer. I'm going to come back here. We talked about the challenge, but there's also the worksheet with this part that's kind of nice. So you could assign maybe the graphic organizer and the worksheet. So this is one that's a little different. I have to actually type in, type in the answer. It's not a drag and drop. It does, I've had them do this, but they don't always stay. So I always tell them to type it in there. And then another part down here on the bottom, they can type in their answer for that part. So just gives you a couple of ideas.
Hey, Lisa, in the worksheet, in the challenge, does BrainPOP give the ability to have these things read to the students?
It doesn't. BrainPOP does not. BrainPOP Junior does.
Thanks.
However, one thing that's approved for our students to use is Read and Write for Google. Read and Write for Google is free. The free version does have a text-to-speech feature. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that on my computer. It's this purple puzzle piece. So if I were to click on that purple puzzle piece, and as a staff member, if you're not sure, we do have access to the premium paid-for version of Read and Write. But with this is a text-to-speech. So I can always highlight what I want read to me and click the play button.
Match each digital term with its real-life counterpart. All caps, Flamure.
Stop it. So that is an option that you have, because that is whitelisted in our GBAPS apps store. So again, it's the free version, and the free version does do that text-to-speech feature. So it'll do that, and then they could actually use that on any website. All right, Google Docs, everything. So there's a workaround there. All right. All right. How are we doing, Amanda? Keep going? Okay. All right. So the next thing I want to look at is the distance learning ideas. So I'm going to come back here, and there's actually a video for distance learning. This is another great way to start off the school year with our kids, because, you know, it's what I like about it is it kind of goes through the scenarios of make sure you're finding a quiet place. Make sure that, you know, there's not something crazy happening in the background. Make sure you, it talks about maybe even making a schedule of when you're going to be doing different things. So you can see that kind of in the preview there. But it would be another really nice way to start off the school year would be talking to your students about what distance learning means. And I know for me personally, I prefer to call it either virtual or distance learning, because that whole, when people call it homeschooling, it's like, you're homeschooling, you're doing this on your own, right? If your teacher is providing you with this information, you're still working with the school virtually or through distance learning. So it's kind of nice to clarify that. But when I'm in my distance learning video, I can either find other videos similar on with these standards. I could come up with some other lesson ideas right here, or I could choose assign. And if I choose assign, I have assigned the movie. So this is, remember earlier I said I could assign just one thing. So here I'm going to assign the movie, and then I'm going to assign the challenge as a review, and I'm going to assign the worksheet. So you could go through and you could assign any of the pieces that you wanted right there from that first page. All right, and then I have to create a class. So, which I don't have anything in Infinite Campus, so I can't do that right now. All right, but that's just how you can just click on assign. You've already watched it and you've already know exactly what you want to do, and you can go from there. All right, I also want to look at, as long as I'm here talking about this, BrainPOP Junior also has, wasn't distance learning. Let me see what it was. Oh, no, that's next one. I'm sorry. A new video that I haven't watched yet that's kind of that distance learning piece is Back to School 2020. And I have that linked in there. There we go. It's brand new. I haven't seen it, like I said. But Back to School 2020 might be something that's going to work. So it talks about, I think, all the different scenarios. I was reading a little bit about it, but might be something when we return for you to consider. Or if some of you might have something where you might have to be working directly with the kiddos. So, all right. All right, let's see. I'm going to look at, these are some other ideas that you really should consider. The information privacy. You really should consider doing this with the students. There's online safety, how to email hackers, depending on the age of your kids. But I think information privacy, there is something similar in BrainPOP Junior. It's just called internet safety. But it's a good idea to do these at the very beginning of the school year, because if you're not familiar with the origin of BrainPOP, it was started by a doctor, and he wanted to share with his patients. Some of them had very serious and very scary diseases, and he was looking for a way to help them understand these scary diseases or scary things happening to them, but do it in a non-threatening way. And that he met up with an animator, which is the voice of Moby, or I'm sorry, the voice of Tim. And this guy created Moby, and they have been they started out just doing his patients, and now obviously for the last 10, 15 years it's branched out for school. And the reason I share that with you is because their pride and joy is on facts. Everything that you're going to be seeing on here is fact-based and to share with children in a non-threatening way. So when I show that there's, you know, the COVID video, it is really impressive how I watched that video and I thought that was really nice how it explains what's going on, but I didn't feel was a scary way to do with kids. So, but watch it yourself and see your particular class if that's something that would work, and it might not. You might have kids that still might be a little too overwhelming for them. But information privacy, it's just really important that we make the students aware that they don't just throw their name and information out there on any old website. So that's what this focuses on. And then there are some nice activities that can go with it. When I looked at the worksheet that goes with this, my first thought for an idea was the worksheet has some different scenarios, different situations to put the kids in, and maybe have them pick one of these situations, and then have them go in and create either make a map, make a movie, or creative coding. Because these are our 3 creation tools within BrainPOP. And if they go into make a map is very much like a concept map. So it gives them the images and the keywords from the movie. And they can then, I'm going to create a new one here. So then they pull over the information, whether it's an image from the video. So there's something about a fingerprint or a thumbprint. They've got keywords that they can pull over, and then have them explain what they would do in that situation through their make a map. Another way, they also can rewatch the movie. So if they watch the movie here, it'll go through the movie again. And then as they get to certain parts,
To learn the hard way.
they could maybe pause it, hit that camera, and what that camera does, it takes a snapshot of that point in the video, and then they can link these kinds of things together. So, and then they can even talk about what was in this point of the video that would help them solve that problem that they had chosen. Right, so then there are also blank notes. So, whoops, I can grab that and move that around. So I could have my blank note that I could then connect to all my others. And so then they're now able to explain through their make a map how they solve that problem. All right, so to get back to it, I'm gonna just leave this page. And I was in.
Hey, Lisa, I'm just going to cut in quick to answer this question.
Yes.
Tanya asked if you can link these activities through Seesaw. It depends what you want to do, because if you link Seesaw, it won't bring them to that single sign-on BrainPOP. So if you want them to create an activity in Seesaw by watching a BrainPOP video, then it's fine to do it that way. But if you want them to submit something to you through BrainPOP single sign-on, they need to go through the app through Launchpad.
Yep, exactly. And we do need to keep reminding our students and our families that they need to be logging on anyway through into their Google account. They have to be in their Google account to access Seesaw. So then therefore they would already be signed in, so that SSO would still work. So yeah, you're right. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and go out actually to the BrainPOP Junior and show you the hand washing video, which, so it doesn't get into the scary COVID stuff that might be for our littles, but there's this really nice hand washing video that talks about the germs and why we need to wash our hands. And this was a newer one. This is an older video, but was updated this past spring in order to be more relevant for COVID. So if I watched that, I could do the same. I have the same options here of assigning things down on the bottom. All right, so I could just click on assign, and then maybe I'm going to give the easy quiz, and then I might have them do the write about it. Okay, so I have all of those options right there. All right, so it works the same as BrainPOP. All right. I'm going to go back to health here in BrainPOP Junior. And I just want to show a little bit about when we're looking at some of that social emotional side. So there's health movies, of course, but there's the feelings category. So this might be something that talk about emotions. It might talk about, in this situation right now, mindfulness. So there's some good videos in there. And then the Be Well. I think this is where I found that hand washing, colds and flu, which is still could be used here. So you have an outbreak of lice in your classroom, don't forget this one is in here. That's a really good one too. It doesn't stigmatize kids. That's what's nice about it. This makes these things very, very normal and a part of life and things that we have to deal with. All right, and then I'm going to switch back over to regular BrainPOP, and I'm going to look at the social emotional side that is on here. So we've got the health and social emotional learning, and we'll see here are some back to school videos. The diseases videos are right in here, and it gets complicated. So if you have older kids, more of that genetics side of it. So there are some great categories. You can use the emotions, especially, you know, this time of year, there might be some apprehension, some things that you want to work on with maybe a small group of your students. Because remember, it doesn't have to be assigned to everybody. You could choose a couple of kids that maybe need one of these social emotional videos. All right, and let's see. I'm going to look at the school to home activities. So I am going to go close my read and write, and I'm going to go back out to the BrainPOP for educators. And this was something that I saw last spring that I thought was really fun. The school to home connection. So this has some activities that include BrainPOP, but include things for them to do with their families at home. So I'm going to go to the K through 2 ideas here. And then my favorite, I'm going to scroll down a little bit once this loads. And I'm going to get to the math one because I thought the math one, here we go. So math and science activities. So the cool thing here is it tells you which video to watch, gives you a couple of choices there, gives you an activity, tells you for the grown-up how much involvement there needs to be. This is a cooking one. So it talks about using the measurement video and maybe some other videos. Find a recipe, make a recipe, do a scavenger hunt in your kitchen. So there are several different activities. And then all you would really need to do is just highlight the part that goes, that you want to put in maybe your classroom newsletter or in Seesaw. You could just type this or copy this information and paste it in right there along with the link to whichever video that you wanted to watch. But there are, you know, I can see on the right, there are 14 pages of different activities for you to have your students do at home with their families. Yeah, speech pathologist, everybody should have an account automatically when you go through SSO. Yeah, Cassie, if you don't have one, then definitely fill out a ticket and they'll look into getting you an account. So just happened to look up and see that. So, all right, Amanda, anything?
I think you pretty well covered it. I was going to talk about the Seesaw thing when you were done, but we
Yeah.
covered it already too.
I'm so glad you're ready. Yeah, you're ready to talk about that. Let me stop sharing my screen and I'll let you hop on and do the Seesaw part.
So like I was saying before, the weird thing with Seesaw is that when you're talking about the littles, you probably don't want to try to get your kindergartner to toggle between Seesaw and between BrainPOP. So sometimes it's easier to just create an activity in Seesaw. But before you create that activity, I would suggest even just searching in Seesaw because there are so many activities already there. But then they can create their whatever activity that you want them to complete. They can create that in Seesaw. Give me 1 second here. I'm gonna share my screen. I don't have a specific BrainPOP example, but I'm just going to pop on here quick and show you. This is what a seesaw activity looks like that I created. It has a video from Common Sense Media. You would just add your video from BrainPOP in here, and they'd be able to watch the video. And then all I did was take a worksheet, and you can, when you create your activity, you can insert it as a Google Doc or, one second. I don't know how many people, or if people have an experience creating stuff in Seesaw yet. I'm sorry, here we go. So this is what it looks like when you're going to create an activity. So you could put your BrainPOP video in here by adding multimedia. And then this is where I put that worksheet, that add template, and I just pulled it from my Google Drive as a Google Doc. So then instead of having them have to go back and forth between BrainPOP and Seesaw, they could just watch the BrainPOP video you want them to watch and then submit it, their understanding to you back through Seesaw. Does anybody have any questions about Seesaw and BrainPOP or anything Lisa said?
We got done a lot earlier than I expected. I mean, we can definitely talk about other parts of BrainPOP if there are questions, or yeah. And Sarah, the thing with BrainPOP is it does live in BrainPOP, so that's another. However you want to look at it. I know it's been discussed with BrainPOP. If you can't take assignments or things that they did in BrainPOP and watch them outside of BrainPOP. So what I have done before, like if you had students do Make a Movie, for example, I have used WeVideo and recorded the screen. And I've done that to then take a video that a student did so that I could maybe share it with their parents or something like that. But everything with BrainPOP lives in BrainPOP. There's, I don't know how to explain that other than they don't want their things to be shared outside of BrainPOP. So it's a very conscious decision. All right. Is there an interest in maybe going through Make a Movie and creative coding and showing how to use those since we have some time? All right, let's go.
Okay, I'm confused. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in here. I'm confused about what you just said with what you said before about sharing out like some of the BrainPOP video, or I'm sorry, in the Seesaw that some of the videos are attached to there?
Well, with all the creator tools, those are the things. So like the Make a Movie, Make a Map, and creative coding, those you can assign them through Seesaw, but everything has to be done in BrainPOP, and they can't submit it from BrainPOP to Google Classroom or to Seesaw. So when they submit those assignments, they submit it directly. It stays and always lives in the BrainPOP dashboard.
I gotcha.
Does that make more sense? I probably, yeah, didn't say that very clearly. So, all right. Amanda, do you want to go through those, or do you want me to?
It doesn't matter to me.
Do you want to do Make a Movie and I'll do creative coding?
Sure.
All right.
All right, I'll hop on and steal your screen again. All right. right, let me get back. I'm just going to go to the digital etiquette because that's where we were. I'm going to select make a movie. Let it load here. So in make a movie, well, every BrainPOP movie starts with that letter, right? They're always answering a question from a viewer. They can, when students come in to create a movie, they can select the answer a letter where it already generates a question. Whenever I've co-taught this in a classroom, we've always had students write their own letter. This is also very important too, to make sure they allow their microphone and so that way you can record their voice. Across the top here is where all the little slides go that are going to be in the video. So I'm going to go back to slide 1 because that is the actual letter itself. I'm going to go down on the left side here to the write your letter. And this is where we would have students put in the question that they're trying to answer through their research. So dear Amanda and Moby, why does it read? From a friend. So, one second. I'm going to select done. And then they can add a sound. So when you're watching BrainPOP movies, it's a lot of talking and not a lot of reading, right? So I always tell the students that we don't want to have people reading their movie. We want them to be able to hear it also. So they can either use the computer voice, or I usually have them record their own voice, and they would just record themselves reading their letter and select save. You can change the background, and then I'm going to go to slide 2 here. This is where you start building onto your movie to answer that question. You can find, there's some basic stuff up here or some basic images up here that go along with that video that we were watching, that digital etiquette. Or you can click up here and you can search anything. And whatever, if it's in a BrainPOP movie, it's going to show up here. So you can click a little Moby. They can add a different background. They can add themselves talking in this as well. And they can annotate. Again, what I said before with there's not a lot of words, not a lot of reading in BrainPOP videos. There's not a lot of annotating you can do. This text box, if you add this one, sorry, my trackpad's being a little silly here. You can move this text box anywhere you want. It is going to cut you off after a certain amount of characters, so students can't type a whole paragraph in there. This text box only goes up and down on this side of the screen or this side of the screen. So it's kind of like a heading or a title to maybe introduce a new topic. They can also free draw something that if they would like to free draw on their video as well. So then I usually have them, do their annotating and then go back and add their sound based on stuff that they have written down from their research. And then if you go back on the top, they can add more scenes for however many scenes you need them to add. It is like Google Drive in the sense that it automatically saves for you, but I always just help students remember to click that save button just to make sure that they don't lose anything. I think that's all I got. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
I'm going to show the preview because my favorite part is how it's got the Moby and the BrainPOP beginning and ending, and it looks so professional. Oh, Sarah, this is actually, you're right, it's only available in BrainPOP. However, your kids can do this particular piece in regular BrainPOP. So I know with classes, I've watched a BrainPOP Junior video, like we watched Butterflies in BrainPOP Junior. And then we went into Metamorphosis, which I'm sorry, the second graders are never going to understand Metamorphosis. It was more like a middle high school video. And then they made their movie themselves.
Okay, so yeah, you can preview it at any point when they're creating the video. But they, like Lisa was saying, they add on their little pieces to make it look like it's a professionally made BrainPOP video. So now I didn't record any sounds or anything, but it would be playing if students did record their voices here.
And I think this is in particularly wonderful with our EL students. I taught EL for 22 years before doing this job, and we were always looking for ways to have our kids practice speaking. And I think this is one of my favorite ways to have my EL kiddos practice speaking, because it's fun and they can record their voice. If they don't like it, they can re-record as many times as they want. So that's another fun feature with that. So, all right, very cool. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show you the creative coding. And I'm going to start with the digital etiquette as well, since that's where we kind of last left off. And creative coding is available in BrainPOP Junior and regular BrainPOP. So you can get to it from both spots. I think my favorite thing about coding in general, and I do a lot with coding. Oh, all right. So you would, all right. I'm having weird stuff with my account. So just bear with me for a second. You guys won't have a problem with your account. So don't worry about that. I just have to sign in a little bit weirder way to get going here. But the fun thing about coding is a lot of teachers are surprised with what students are good at this and which students maybe you expected to be really strong and maybe aren't as strong. But I often see students that rise so much through the coding process, and they become those kids that, I'm going to go down here into my dashboard, I guess. And they end up being that student that isn't strongest in language arts maybe, or isn't the best reader, but they're really good at this coding piece. So again, you guys don't have to worry about going this way. I just am having problems with my account right now. So I'm going to go ahead and go into branches of government, because that's when I already started. So, all right. So loading my project. And so BrainPOP uses Scratch. That is a coding language that is, we call Blockly. So it's drag and drop. So these are blocks, and we get the blocks from the left side. We drag them into the middle workspace. And in this top right is our preview. And then in the bottom right is where we have our sprites and our backdrops. All right. So you have a variety of different types of coding that you can do. I chose the museum. I think it's the easiest way to start a project. On the left side, it's going to just give you the first few blocks. And then I just clicked show more until all my blocks were there. So on the right side, this is what I'm going to be coding. So if I click on Annie and Annie's highlighted, this actually comes pre-coded for me. So it says when the green flag is clicked, she's going to say, welcome to my museum for 2 seconds. Then then that'll go away, and click on any item to learn more about it. We'll stay there for 4 seconds. Now these are what we call say blocks, but there isn't anything that you're going to hear. It's all written. So they have to type in the message that they want their sprite to say. And a sprite is kind of like another way of thinking of a character. So Annie is a sprite and Moby is a sprite. But a ball is a sprite and a tree is a sprite. So anything that we're going to code is what a sprite is. But it's kind of nice to use maybe character to help the kids understand. So the tree becomes a character. Your ball becomes a character. If it's going to do something, it's like being a character. All right, so I'm going to add a sprite. And to do that, I have to click on the word add here. And I have sprites from my movie. So this was the Branches of Government movie. So it starts off just like make a movie and make a map. I've got all the sprites from that movie, just like you saw with what Amanda showed you. And then I scroll down and I've got more sprites. So I've got a bunch of BrainPOP characters. So Nat is one of the newer characters. Of course, Annie's in here, Moby's in here. Rita is in here, so there are several others. Then there are some just generic things, balls and balloons and animals and numbers and things like that. So I'm going to add Tim into here just for fun here. All right. So now I'm going to code Tim. And I can tell I'm coding Tim because he's highlighted in blue over on the side. I might want him on my shelf, or maybe I want him down standing next to Annie. Now he's awful small. So over here is the size. So I can make him bigger. So maybe I'm going to say I'm going to make him 60%. Oh, still not big enough. Let's try 80. All right, so that's a little bit, that's more appropriate about how the size compares to Annie. And I just did that by clicking on size. So now I'm going to drag my stuff into the middle of what Tim's going to do. So I start off with when this sprite clicked, meaning when they click on Tim, these are the things that are going to happen. I'm going to have him do a hello lot. So he's going to say, I'm going to just have one that says hello, and then I'm going to have it that says, my name is Tim. All right, so those are going to each stay there for 2 seconds. And then I'm going to have him, we'll just have him change size. Actually, no, that's boring. We're going to have him rotate. All right, so instead of rotating 50 degrees, I'm going to have him rotate 360 degrees. So depending on the age of your kids, this is a great way to talk about angles and degrees. So when I click on Tim, I can test this out. He should say hello. Yep. Then he's going to tell me my name is Tim. And, oh, you know what? The problem is I didn't say, he did his flip, but he did it really slow. And I'm not going to use that right now. Let's try something else. Let's have him, I'm running out of time here. We're just going to change color. Oops. Snap that in there, and we'll try that again. And so it just says it's going to change color. I could have him change a variety of things. There he turned green. I could have him change and do a whirl when I click on it. So now he's green. Next time he's going to do a little whirl. There, he's got a little whirl to him. So there's a whole bunch of things that you could have him do. And each time you just find one, you add a sprite. And maybe in this case, I'm going to do when this sprite clicked. And I'm going to change it to I am the Declaration of Independence. Oops. And then maybe have them choose 2 or 3 sprites to bring out that they then have to show their learning as to what these things are. So they can do fun stuff with it. They can talk about, you know, what that particular sprite represents from the movie to show that they're what their learning is. And, you know, this is just a great way. This is a really easy way with the drag and drop. If you have a kid that is a coder, especially as we get the older kids, and you'll know because the kid will come up and say, can I do this in C++? And you're going to be like, I have no idea what this kid is talking about. Show them the other option, which is JavaScript. So you might have a kid that is at home and literally coding and typing out their code. So there are several languages. There's Java, there's C++, there's HTML, there's tons of coding languages. BrainPOP uses VidCode. So they might take that as a nice challenge. And I can't tell you how many teachers I've worked with that have had a student that did ask if they could do something more challenging, and they find out that this is a secret coder when he's at home. So it's a lot of fun to give the kids these opportunities to show off something that they have a talent in, and they're also going to be showing you the information that they know. So kind of a fun way to do that. All right, and when they're done, right here it says assign, so the students would see submit to teacher just like everything else. All right, cut it in by the skin of my teeth. 127. Please captions. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I always use the captions. I can't believe I failed to mention that. I always have closed captioning on anytime I'm showing a BrainPOP video. So it's not wanting to go back for me. But yeah, definitely put the closed captioning on. Good catch. All right. Anything else?
Let me just throw out there, if you guys have questions after this and the school year started, feel free to reach out to your TI or your LMS. We're all more than willing to help teach a session or to your students or whatever you guys need.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are several LMS that are certified BrainPOP educators, several. So I don't even know, I can't even start naming them because I think there's so many. I think many of our LMS are CBEs. So yeah, definitely reach out, let us know. We'd be happy to help. All right, enjoy the rest of summer.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.